Hey, what's up guys? Sloth King here. Today I'm going to be working on my friend's 2011 Toyota RAV4. It has the 4-cylinder in it and we're going to be replacing the oil pan on it. So the oil pan drain bolt he already had oversized, but another shop messed it up. So instead of going through the whole thing again, we're just going to go ahead and replace the oil pan. It's not too bad of a job. And yeah, that's about it. So if your oil pan, one, has a messed up drain bolt that you already replaced, or two, it's leaking, this is the video for you. If you have a 6-cylinder, it's a little bit more involved because you have to disconnect the exhaust. But luckily, we're working on the 4-cylinder today, so it's going to be pretty straightforward. So I already got the hood popped. Let's go ahead and put it on some jack stands, and let's dig into this. All right. The vehicle's up in the air. Let's go ahead and drain this oil and let's start talking about what you will need for this job. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what you will need to complete this job. So first things first, you're going to need a new oil pan. You're going to need a jack and jack stands or some ramps. You're going to need an oil catch can. Definitely need some rags, gloves for sure, metric socket set. You're going to need some razor blades to take off the old gasket, something to hold your oil pan bolts. You're going to need some brake parts cleaner to clean up the oil. You're going to need to pick this thing up. This is a gasket separator, so you jam this in between the pan and the block and it will separate the oil pan a lot easier. And you're going to need some sort of hammer to hammer this in. This will make the job so much easier. And then you're going to need some gasket sealer. So I highly recommend the Toyota or the AISIN gasket sealer. This stuff is from the factory and it will seal the oil pan really well. And last but not least, you will need a torque wrench to torque down the bolts. These get torqued down to 30 foot-pounds, so it's not too tight, but you will need this to make sure that you have a proper seal. And I also have an impact gun on me. This is optional. I just want to make it a lot faster to take off all the oil pan bolts. And then, of course, you're going to need some new oil and oil filter if you haven't done that already. Oh, and I almost forgot. You are going to need something to put your old oil in, so go ahead and figure that out. You can get one of these tubs. Since you're putting new oil in, you can put the new oil into your old oil container, and then you can go drop it off to get it recycled. That's about it. Everything that I'm using, I will link in the description below, so that way you guys can just click and check out as you need. So yeah, anyway, let's let this oil finish draining, and then let's start taking off that pan. All right, now that the oil is all drained, we're going to take off all of these bolts that go all the way around the oil pan. They are just 10mm bolts. There should be like 2 studs, one on this side, and I think there's a stud on this side as well. They have 1 stud here, and then they have 1 stud right over on this side. So let's go ahead and start taking these things off. So I like to go around and make sure that they're all loose before I start to take them all out 100%. And then there's one that's like in between the frame right over here. Let me see if I can get a good shot for you. It's like right in between here. You are going to need a swivel socket to get to this one right here. It's a little tricky. All right, I have all of the bolts out. Now we can go ahead and start prying the oil pan off. So I'm gonna see if there's an easy spot to start getting this on, and then let's see if it separates it pretty easily. All right, gonna put this thing on here. There's not too many spots where we can actually hammer it in, so you're supposed to be able to hammer it from like this top part. Maybe from here. All right, so I do have a pry bar, so maybe if I can, like, I have a small pry bar, so maybe if I can pry this in here a little bit just to get it started, then I can put that pan separator tool in there. All right, that went in a little bit, so let me try to get this in that same spot. All right, so I had to get it a little separated with the pry bar, but it's starting to, this is starting to work a bit. So now that it's secured in there, we can get like a bigger pry bar on this and then just tap it. Okay, I'm starting to come loose, which is good. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Now it's loose. Sweet. It actually did help. So I just had to get a pry bar in there just to start like separating the seal. And then our tool just went in and completely got the seal apart. There we go. Now let's slowly lower this. And then we'll keep it like right in the center to catch any residual oil. There we go. Not too bad. All right, so this is where the messy part comes in. This is where our razor blades are needed. We're going to take our razor blade and just scrape off the old gasket material. You want to have the razor blade at like an angle, and we're just going to go around, scrape the whole thing off, and we're going to clean the surface with brake parts cleaner, and then we can start to put the new pan back on. So let's start scraping this off and get it all cleaned up. All right, I got all the gasket material scraped off. Let's go ahead and start wiping down this whole surface right here and get all residual oil off. There we go. Now we can get the new pan ready and put her back on. All right, guys, so I got the new pan out, and we're just going to go across the edge where we're going to put the gasket sealer with some brake parts cleaner just to get any residual like oil off from the factory and stuff like that. So we're going to make sure this is nice and clean. Then we will add our sealer. All right, now we're just going to go around the whole pan with the sealer, and yeah, that's about it. And then we can install it. All right, now we have to install it within 15 minutes. So let's go ahead and start torquing it down. Now remember, the torque specs on these bolts are 84 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, 84 inch-pounds. So let's start doing that. All right, now let's start putting all the other bolts back in as quick as we can. Now, ideally, you want to torque in a star pattern, just to make sure the pan goes on even. There we go. And then you just want to go all the way around one more time to make sure that they're all torqued down, and then you're good to go. I didn't even realize that the camera was smudgy. All right, so now that the pan is on and torqued down, we're going to wait about an hour to 2 hours for this gasket to dry, and then we can throw some oil back in and see if it leaks. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and clean everything up. If you spilled any oil on your exhaust, go ahead and put some brake parts cleaner on it, clean all that up. And yeah, let's go take a lunch break and then let's see if it leaks afterwards. All right, guys, it's been a little over an hour. So let's go ahead and throw some oil back in and let's start it up and see if it leaks. And by the way, make sure that you torque down your new oil pan bolt. It should be 25 to 30 foot-pounds, or you can just go by hand and move it like a quarter. Yeah, so let's, I'm gonna fill it up and let's start it up and let's see if there's any leaks. All right, let's go ahead and see if anything's leaking. Looks nice and dry under here, guys. All right, guys, and we're all done. That's how you change your oil pan on a 2011 Toyota RAV4 4-cylinder. Keep in mind, it's It's a 4-cylinder, not the 6-cylinder. 6-cylinder, you got to remove the exhaust because it overlaps on the oil pan. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. That was probably one of the easier oil pans that I've taken off. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It took about 3.5 hours or so. It was mostly just letting that gasket sealer dry so that way you can put oil back in and start it up. You got to wait 1 to 2 hours, like I said earlier. But yeah, hopefully this video helped you out. I think this covers RAV4s from 2006 to 2012, somewhere in that area. But yeah, that's about it. Everything that I used, I will link below. And if you guys found this video helpful, sweet, good. Anyways, like always, I'll catch you guys on the next ride.